It's go time.
Okay, everybody. Good evening. My name is Nancy Kinner, and I'm a citizen here in the wonderful town of Georgetown. And I'm delighted to once again be facilitating the town of Georgetown's 2024 Candidates Night. This is a wonderful night in our town when we can hear what people who are running for office have to say. So this is your forum, and I want to remind you that we're recording this so that those who cannot be with us tonight can listen. It will be posted online on the town's YouTube channel. But more importantly, I want to remind you that this is your opportunity to put a question in the chat if you have it. Okay? So you can put that question in at any point during the evening. And what we'll be doing here with my compatriot, the wonderful Tyler Washburn, all of you know, we will be kind of compiling those questions in the chat so that we can ask them of the candidates. Okay? So without further ado, I think we will start. What we're going to do tonight is what we've done in all of the other events, and we'll give each candidate a chance to give you a 2 to 3 minute synopsis of why they are running for the particular office they are, and what they see as the big issues and why they want to run. So we're going to run through the candidates for each of the positions, and we're going to start with how they are on the actual official ballot, which I have a sample of here in front of me. So I'm just going to tell you what that is. We have one person, Aria E., running for a 3-year term for the select board unopposed. We have one person, Alex Kelly, running for town clerk for 1 year unopposed. We have one person, Alex Kelly, running for tax collector unopposed for a 1-year term. We have 2 people running for a 3-year term on the school committee, Willa Abel and Clara Evans. Aria, Alex Kelly, and Willa and Clara are on with us tonight. We have one person running unopposed, Mark Donovan, for the town-owned property management board for a 3-year term. Mark is not able to be with us tonight. And we have one person running for a 3-year term as the cemetery district trustee, and that is Kirk Lundstrom. And I do not believe that he is on or...
He is not as of now.
He is not on as of now, and he is not here. He had thought he might come here. So as of now, we will have Aria, Alex Kelly, Willa, and Clara talking about why they're running for their particular offices. And of course, these people are running unopposed, but a write-in candidate can be put in on any of these offices. So we're going to start off tonight with Aria E., who is running for a 3-year term on the select board. Aria, I am starting the clock now.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy. Good evening. And thanks to you and Tyler and Mary for the opportunity to address our community. And thanks all of you listening tonight. It's really great to see so many people, and I'm looking forward to our conversation as the time goes along. I am Aria E., and I've had the pleasure to get to know many of you over the course of my service to Georgetown. Among other things, that service has included the Rec Committee, the Conservation Committee, and the Board of Appeals. So most recently, I've served as the chair of the Appeals Board, and throughout my tenure, have served as the chair of the Rec Committee. Over the last 3 years, I've attended nearly every select board meeting, all the budget hearings, many school board meetings, and various other meetings and town events. I'm a yearly attendee of our June town meetings. Now, why have I done this? It's so I can gauge what is happening in our community and to understand what may lie ahead for us. I'm also the proud parent of a GCS 3rd grader. And although he's young, he's nearly my size. It's a real joy to parent here in Georgetown. I've also been fortunate to volunteer with thoughtful people, and it's been a real pleasure to serve. I come to this candidacy with experience, having logged 30 years dedicated to public service in Maine. But beyond my volunteer work in the community, I have the requisite skill set to serve as a member of the Select Board. Now, some of you know it's my second candidacy for this position. I want to serve our town in this way, and that's why I've remained engaged in various community efforts. Based upon my professional training, I'm experienced with fiscal management, with budgeting, human resources, employment law, and overall management concerns. I see myself as a bridge builder, inclusive of varied perspectives, and I will work collaboratively on decisions to achieve the goals that we as a community will decide are appropriate to guide our future. I believe that I've demonstrated a commitment to Georgetown. I've worked hard, really hard, to engage others across different groups. And I think I can show I can get the job done.
Candidate night.
Please mute yourselves. Go ahead, Ari, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think I've shown I can get the job done. So I hope you agree with me and would so appreciate your expressing that agreement with a vote for me on Election Day. Thanks. Thank you again, everyone. Good luck to all the candidates. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aria. Okay, next up, we have Alex Kelly, who is currently the town clerk and tax collector, and she is running for a one-year term for each of those offices. And I've asked Alex to just give us an overview for both offices at once. Go ahead, please, Alex.
Hi there. I'm Alexandra Kelly. I'm sure most of you know me by now. I have been told that I've been a little curt in the past couple candidates nights, so I'm going to try to speak a little bit more about myself and my job. So I moved here in 2017. I fell in love with a salty fisherman, and he moved me down here to the island, to Five Islands. And then in 2019, I got the job at the town office as an administrative assistant. And then 2020 hit, it was, Meg, mute yourself.
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. So I started the job in 2019, and then in 2020, COVID hit. We did some shifting around, and I became the town clerk that year. So kind of got thrown into the mix really quick with COVID and only being there for a few short months. But Mary and Amanda really helped me, learn a lot in my position. And now I'm going on my 5th term as town clerk and tax collector. I couldn't be more grateful for my job. I love working with Mary and Tyler every day. It's the best work environment I've ever had. And I love that I get to know everyone. It is a blessing and a curse. Everyone knows me now too when I go places, but I do love getting to know everyone in Georgetown. I did become the Register of Voters this year. It had been Amanda previously. I definitely think that the biggest effect that COVID had was on elections. It just really changed the workload. I just recently reappointed a bunch of new clerks, and our local news anchor, Jim Peavy, sent out an email, and I got a ton of people responding to volunteer to help with election clerks. So thank you all who signed up for that. We do have fun, and I'm looking forward to the next few elections. That's pretty much it. Am I done? Did I do the 3 minutes?
No, you've got 1 minute left.
What? Oh, 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, my job's great. And, I do registrations, car registrations, boats, vital records. If you want to get married or if you have a baby, you come get that from me. Registering to vote, all kinds of other questions. So if you ever need anything, just call the office and ask for me, and I'll do what I can to help you. And thanks for attending Candidates Night. I think that wraps it up.
Thank you, Alex. I don't think we said you were curt. I think we said that you were quiet. So tonight you made up.
I got some feedback. That's okay, though. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Okay.
Yes.
We're now going to move on to the school committee, which is a 3-year term. And there are two people running for the school committee this year, Willa Abel and Clara Evans. And the way we've done this is Willa will speak first because her name appears first on the ballot, and then Clara will speak. And then when we ask questions, we're going to alternate who gets the question to answer the question first versus second. Okay, so take it away, Willa. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nancy, and everyone for the big turnout. This is my first live TV performance, so I'm excited. Nancy, you prompted us with the question of why are we interested in the school committee and what we think the priority should be going forward. So I'm taking my lead from you, and I'll just talk a little bit about sort of why I care about the school board, why it matters to me, and then also what my priorities would be as a member of the school board. So probably the most important thing is that I'm a parent of 3 students in the Georgetown Central School. I wish I could say that's the most of anyone, but I know there are some other families with a lot of kids there. But 3 kids, so I feel really connected to the school and the education that they receive. I am a career educator. I'm a certified science teacher, and I've also done a lot of different roles in schools. I'm currently working as an ed tech in RSU1 with multi-language learners. So, and I've worked also in a special education capacity as well. So I have a career in the schools, and so I care about education from that perspective. I grew up in this community, and I care about it for that reason. I went to Georgetown School with many of you on this call. So I feel really invested in the community and in the long term. I just moved back a year ago or so, but I feel really connected to this place. This is where my roots stem from. So, and I also think that the Georgetown School is pretty much the best thing that I've come across in this big wide earth. I've worked in a lot of schools. I've lived in a lot of places. And to walk into that building and see those kids learning in the way that they are is really something pretty special. And I feel that it needs to be cherished. And sorry, get emotional. I think about that. And I do think we all have a role to play in sustaining it and supporting it and making it grow. And if this is my role in that effort, then so be it. And then just going forward, the biggest issues that I hear talked about, this is what I see, but also what I hear, and that's that, you know, ensuring the continued financial stability and sustainability of the school when everything is getting more expensive. Everything that we can think of is getting more expensive, including education. Continuing to create a happy, creative, 3-dimensional learners who are grounded in the natural world, in this beautiful natural world that they grow up in.
Willa, you have about 10 seconds left.
Oh, okay. And keep Georgetown, as a sort of a diverse place full of many generations of people and many political leanings where we all sort of rub along together regardless of our differences. I was going to be short. Sorry.
Thank you.
Max at the time.
All right, Clara, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. This is my first time as well, so it's really cool that we have such a large participation tonight. So I guess I'll start with, you know, I'm from the Brown family down in Georgetown, born and raised, went to school at GCS. And, you know, went through Bath, went through Morse, and left, went out of state for my training. So I have received my undergraduate in elementary education. I have been an educational technician in behavior. I have my master's degree now in literacy. I was teaching, classroom teacher in elementary schools for a decade. And I just recently, in March of 2022, stepped away from the brick and mortar classroom setting. And now I work for an international ed tech company, and I design curriculum. So I feel as though that with my certifications as like a mentor teacher, from Orono, and my experience as a literacy mentor, and my time now where I lead about 45 educators in the work towards designing curriculum at the K-12 level. I feel like that would be a benefit for the school. I think it presents a unique angle for the school board, a school board member to have that much experience in education, especially elementary, considering the age range of our students. And, you know, with Learning Mate, my current position, I have a lot of experience with DEI, which is diversity and equity inclusion. 1 minute. And I think that with my 2 children here now and working from home, I can now invest more time in the island than I was able to before. And my daughter's in pre-K, so I'm very committed.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you to all the candidates, especially keeping to the time so that we have plenty of time for questions. And I want to encourage all of you to please put your questions in the chat. This is an opportunity for us to ask your questions. Okay, so please put your questions in the chat. We have some, but we don't have a huge number, so please put them in there. Okay, thank you. All right, so right now the questions are all for the school candidates, school committee candidates. And I will ask the first one here. Willa will go first, and then Clara, and then the next question, Clara will go first, etc. All right. We live in a small town where the school budget is a big part of the town budget, and that is often a source of concern for residents. One of the responsibilities of the school board members is not only to draft a budget that's acceptable to the town, but to articulate the value of the school to the town. How would you articulate the unique value of the Georgetown Central School to your neighbors? And how would you continue to be a strong advocate for this learning community's value? Willa?
All right. Do we have a time limit on the answers?
No.
No.
Well,
Oh.
if you go on for like 25 minutes, I'm going to cut you, but no.
Okay. I have a filibuster here, and I'll just talk the whole time. So the question as to like the share of the budget that the school accounts for in the tax load of residents, I think one important thing to keep in mind is that the main reason it's such a high share is because our town doesn't have that many other expenses in addition to the school. The school is the primary driver of or the primary receiver of our tax funding, in part because we sort of outsource a lot of our services to Bath. So their taxpayers pay for a lot of things that we get. But so it does take up a large share of the taxpayers' money, but that doesn't mean that like objectively it's a really high amount. And in fact, I doing some digging in terms of what is the per pupil spending and the average tax load in Georgetown relative to other towns, and we're kind of on the slightly upper end of the middle of the road in Maine. So it is true that it feels like a big number because it is such a big share of our tax burden, but it's not sort of an outlandish tax bill that we're levying in order to support our school. So it's not a particularly expensive school, which is amazing actually, because it's for such a small school, this sort of efficiencies that we've been able to, or not we, I don't get credit for it. The school board and the school administration has been able to achieve by doing some really kind of smart, forward-thinking measures, like having a teaching principal who does intervention and teaches, and
Willa?
also, yeah.
The question actually wasn't about that. I mean, I know you're talking about, but I want to make sure we answer the question.
I thought you said that
Excuse me? So the
Sorry.
question was
Go ahead.
how you were going to advocate.
Right. I thought the first part of the question was about the relative share of the tax.
Yeah, they were just making a statement.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, so I will continue. I mean, I think I was getting there, but maybe in a long-winded
Okay.
way. So, what I was going to say is that I do feel like because of the sentiment in the town that is sensitive to sort of this tax burden of the school, I think that the school has done a really, really good job of introducing a lot of measures that keep it reasonable for such a small school, multi-age classrooms and things like that. I do think, like I mentioned in my intro, I do feel like for such a our school is something really precious. We've been able to create for a reasonable cost, I would argue, we've been able to create something that's extremely special and rare within the educational landscape. I see a lot of schools where students are spending a lot of more time inside on devices in crowded classrooms, and they really have a depersonalized relationship with their school. And Georgetown School is a treasure. You have multi-age classrooms, you have big kids looking after little kids, and it's really like the gold standard for what education should look like. And we're achieving that fairly heroically, I would say, on a reasonable budget. And so I think that yes, a school is expensive, but do we want to live in a town with no school? Do we think that that's the goal for Georgetown? I think most of us deep down feel like that's not the kind of community we want to live in. Multi-generational towns are essential for health and for happiness of both young and old people, elderly people, and that a school is really intrinsic to that. So I think that having a school is an essential part of our town and keeping its character as it is. And we've got a really beautiful school for what I think is a pretty reasonable cost. So I'm sorry if I drew that out longer than I needed to by not going directly at your question, but
Okay, thank you.
That's
Clara.
Hi. Yeah, I think that's a really great question. You know, coming from teaching in Wiscasset, teaching in Cumberland, very different school systems, one small, small community, one much larger. I think that I would really focus on, when you say the word value, I think people can be persuaded to find value in anything. It's your delivery, right? It's why we go to a car salesman and we buy a car that's way too expensive, but we're sold on the value, right? And I would respond to that question of how with transparency and community outreach. And I think our school does a pretty decent job now with community outreach. I think there's always room for improvement, but I think that our taxpayers who have kids in the school, they may understand the value more than taxpayers who do not have kids in the school. So transparency around what is happening in the school. We have right now, each classroom, each teacher kind of chooses how they share information. And then we have our lovely newsletter that comes out. But I think there's always ways to get the word out a little better around what are the kids doing? What does the growth look like? How are they in the community and making a difference? Our kids already have the reputation, I heard during a school board meeting, of being some the fan favorites when they go on field trips with how well they act and how they present themselves. And so people can be persuaded pretty easily to commit when they see the value. So transparency and community outreach.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a question, a couple of questions actually, with respect to diversity in the schools. They seem to be broken into a couple of different categories. So Clara, I'll ask this of you first. how would you propose that Georgetown Central School and the school committee support diverse youth, including those who identify as LGBTQ?
Well, I think back to my time at Georgetown. Some of my memories in Georgetown are not the best socially. I was bullied, I was mistreated. And I spent the majority of my time receiving the support that I needed from my mom, obviously, but from the guidance counselor. I think the guidance counselor is a very important role in schools, in social emotional health and wealth. And so I don't know all the details around the decisions to cut that position, or the plans right now as they are, but I would be interested in pursuing and getting some answers around possibly bringing that position back. I think that's a safety net for all students. I've never worked in a school where the guidance counselor did not play an incredibly vital role to the student body. And I think that that is one way that I could see room for improvement around helping our students, our children, see themselves when they go to school and be able to relate to people when they're going through something.
Willa?
So, okay, yeah, so I'm not sure, Clara, I answered the question, but specifically talking about LGBTQ youth, I don't know if the suggestion was that the guidance counselor is the mechanism through which those issues should be addressed, but I'm happy to go on to answer the question. So I with this particular issue, I sometimes worry that we sort of accept national level sort of culture wars and we play them out in our school. I think that there's lots of reasonable people can certainly disagree about certain aspects of the conversation about certain put it this way, sort of measures that various people want to introduce specifically to help, sometimes that's a trans student or LGBTQ student who need certain kinds of support services at school. There's a lot of these sort of measures that have been politicized at a national level. And I feel like my approach, thinking about Georgetown and our community, is really just to be pretty concrete, looking at our student population and really ask ourselves always the question of what do our kids need? Look at our population. What do we need? What can be introduced? Sometimes that's a simple measure like giving a kid a book or maybe giving access to a bathroom to make them comfortable. And often those little measures don't impact anyone else. And there's no reason to sort of conflate these common sense accommodations that any kid with some special circumstances is sort of legally and morally entitled to in a school. There's no reason not to offer those simply because it sort of triggers this national conversation about some of those topics. And so I really advocate like sort of decoupling a little bit from the culture wars that we see being played out and think concretely about our kids. What do they need? How can we all, every single learner in our community, be compassionate and responsive to the needs that we see in front of us and you see in your classmates and in your parents, and really try to be proactively inclusive in that way.
Okay. All right. So the next question, I'm going to ask another of the school board. We only have one other question, I think, that's for a non-school board. So I'm just going to keep going on these for a couple more minutes. Willa, you would answer this one first. How do you understand neurodiversity of a student population? How do you understand special education budgets? How do you understand ADA and IDEA laws and services that are a right for neurodivergent students?
Well, if the question is whether I do understand those, I think I do. I have a divergent child. I work as an educator and I deal with kids on IEPs and 504s all the time. I have versed myself as a parent and as an advocate for my kid in terms of the legal responsibilities and rights that we have as parents. And again, I've seen that on the other side as an educator as well. So that's the concrete answer to your question. I could wax a little bit more poetic about what neurodiversity sort of means and what its value is to a community. But I think that's not what the question's about. So I won't do that.
One thing it might be helpful, just in case there are people on the call who don't understand neurodiversity, could you possibly give your view of what that is short? I'm not asking for a lecture here.
Sure. I think we use that term neurodiversity as a sort of a replacement of how we used to frame learning differences. So in the past, it was a little bit more like, are you normal, or do you have a disability? And neurodiversity has basically emerged as a way of thinking of us all as being part of a sort of a melting pot of different personality types and abilities, and that we all sort of pop up in some different part of that spectrum, so to speak. And so it's basically a sort of a broader way of thinking about ability in schools.
Okay, Clara.
Nancy, would you repeat the question for
Yes.
me?
Yes, ma'am. How do you understand neurodiversity of a student population? How do you understand special education budgets? How do you understand ADA and IDEA laws and services that are a right for neurodivergent students?
So I've never been in a role where I deal with like the budget of a special education department. So I would say I'm unfamiliar in that kind of area. What I am familiar with, I was a behavior ed tech. I worked with students who would be considered neurodiverse. I have taught many students over my time in the classrooms who are on IEPs, 504s, and receive those services. And I also have been a champion for students. I'm sure that Willa is in her position in education, but that's kind of ingrained in us as educators. We champion for students and for what they need and when they need it, and meeting them where they are. So I think I'm fairly familiar, and I don't know much about the current state of what that looks like in the Georgetown school. So I would need to learn more. I do know that a very strong RTI program, which is an intervention program in a school, is one way to provide support, not just for students who need individualized plan, but students who may need to be pushed further with their education. So I would be interested in seeing what that looks like at Georgetown.
Clara, could you just, for those who may not know, explain what an RTI program is?
Yeah,
just
sure.
briefly.
Yep. So RTI stands for Response to Intervention, and it is a process that is set in place in a school, and schools set that process themselves. And so in the districts that I've worked in, the RTI looks different. But essentially it is 3 tiers of support. And the first tier is what is happening in the classroom to support those students and allow them to access their education. And teachers are charged with needing to show, significant effort put into to help a student before they are considered for that next level of support. So basically you have to say, here's everything that I've done, and it's either working or it's not working. And if it's not working, how do we solve for that?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right. The next question, I've got two individual questions, one for Willa and one for Clara. So I'm going to ask those individual questions now, okay? And then we have some more general questions for both of you. For you, Willa, there's a question here that we heard about Clara's credentials as an educator. What is your background, Willa, in education?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I've done a lot of different things in a lot of different places. So I'll start chronologically. So I've started my teaching career teaching at an international school in Bratislava, Slovakia, which implemented the International Baccalaureate curriculum. And I was teaching high school biology and chemistry at that school. Then I took a break from teaching and I got my master's in health policy, and I spent a couple of years doing research on a lot of sort of public programming, including a lot of education programming. And that was in South Africa. I lived there for several years doing sort of public health and public education research. And then I returned to the US and I worked for 5 years in an independent boarding school in Massachusetts, teaching, again, biology and chemistry there. And that was a residential school. So I lived with students and taught them, which was a fun period of time. And then I moved to Vermont and I spent 2 years teaching in a public high school, again, biochemistry. And then I also, in that time, I spent some time as a elementary school ed tech, supporting special needs students. And then upon returning back to Maine in the summer of 2022, I spent some time volunteering in schools and substitute teaching. And now I have a role as a multilingual learner support person in RSU1.
Thank you. Clara, here's a question for you. Last fall, you protested the Set for Success event at Morse High School and expressed on social media that the rainbow flag negatively impacts you. And you also stated, quote, removing your child from public school is never off the table, unquote. How do you reconcile the impact of those comments on members of our community who would entrust you? How do you reconcile those comments, particularly to LGBTQ youth and members of the community who are concerned about that?
Interesting question. Interesting word choices. So I guess I don't understand the word protest or reconcile in that question. To give background for everybody who doesn't understand what they're talking about, the Set for Success event that happened last year was, it's in Bath. It's advertised by the schools to be able to go and get your children's school supplies in preparation for the beginning of school. And so I had my 4-year-old who was very excited for school. We were super pumped to go up and get school supplies. So we got our list and made our way in. And so the concern that I had was, if you weren't there, you walk in, you get your list from your teachers, and then they had this U-shaped tables up on each side, and it was in a U, and so you kind of started on one end and you had to work your way around. The concern that I had was that while walking through, I mean, the U kind of posed problems for traffic and chaos anyway, but you're essentially kind of funneled through this, and you pass by every table. There was a group there called Out Maine, and speaking as a parent of a 4-year-old, I was not impressed by having to take my child past that table. And I say past that table in the sense that when you're 4 and things are bright and loud, it's attractive. So it was difficult to maneuver her through that U shape. And so when we say protest, my question to the director, I think, of the Midcoast Youth Center, and then to the superintendent of schools, was if we could avoid the U shape and have what is there for the schools separate from any kind of community outreach, so that it was a choice for parents to go up to a community outreach table. So a protest makes me feel like I wasn't okay with them being there, which was not the conversation that I had. And then the follow-up for taking my children out of public schools, never off the table. I don't quite see, the problem with that either. It's not off the table. I'm a qualified educator of small children. I could provide education for my children at home. I have worked in public schools for a very long time, and I continue to champion for public schools. And I hope that we, stay on the right path. But I think it's every parent's choice as to whether or not they want to keep their children home and educate them at home, or put them into the public school system.
Thank you. Thanks, Clara. Alex, here's a question for you. You are aware, I think, that the majority of towns in Maine appoint rather than elect their town clerks. What are your thoughts about one process versus the other, i.e. appointed versus elected, and which would be best for Georgetown in the future?
Great question. This is something that we have definitely had on the table, since I've been working there. I think we go back and forth about it a lot. From my understanding, the people of Georgetown wanted to vote for who their town clerk was. So for me, I've always accepted that. But I do think that this position has grown, and, based on salary, health care that is now provided, health insurance, just the workload that it entails, it's a lot of work. And I think that it should be someone who's qualified to do the job. And I personally think that, maybe it should be an appointed position that you would apply for the job and they'd go over applications. Whereas if it's something that is elected, and there's like, if I said I don't want to do it anymore and 2 people ran for the job because they said, hey, this is a good job, then what is it going to boil down to? I think a lot of races that I've seen candidates going against each other in this town, it gets cut down tooth and nail to who's a Democrat and who's a Republican. And I don't know if that should be the qualifications of who gets the job. I think it should be much more detailed than that. And a lot of clerks in the state of Maine are appointed. They're hired, they apply, and that's how they get the job. I'm okay with either way. I'm happy to run once a year for my position as an elected position. I definitely just think that we should talk about it, and it's up to the people of Georgetown and the select board and everyone else. But I'm happy either way. I'm happy to be here and happy to serve my community.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Now a question for the candidates for the school board. Willa, you can answer this first. The school has started changing curriculum over the past year. Do you see room for improvement in the curriculum? And how could you support the new principal and staff in curriculum development? That same question will come to you, Clara.
All right, thanks. I'm not sure precisely which curriculum changes they're referring to in terms of the changes that have been introduced over the past year. Sorry, can you so the changes that have been made, and then what do I think improvements in the curriculum could be?
Yes, do you see
Basically,
room for improvement in the curriculum, and how could you support the new principal and staff in curriculum development?
Yeah, so I do have lots of thoughts on the curriculum. You know, I don't know if this is the level of detail that you're interested in hearing, but the math curriculum I don't love. As a parent of a kid who struggles with language processing, I find the math curriculum really unnecessarily wordy and sort of really challenges kids who already struggle with math by introducing a lot of other sort of cognitive processing steps that aren't necessary in math learning. So I would like a sort of a revisitation of the math curriculum, and maybe really just doing a pretty like bird level search in terms of like what is working, not just in the country, but internationally with math. And I work with a lot of international students, and they all seem to have a very different relationship with math than our American students. So I would love to sort of really deeply think about how we should approach that. I would love to see, anyone who knows me knows I'm kind of anti-tech. I like really, Georgetown does a great job with tech. I'd like to see less. I would like to see more time outside. I would really like, Nina did such a good job pushing the school towards in the direction. I don't want to say towards like an outdoor school model, but definitely nudged it in that direction. And I would really love to see the next principal take that even farther, start the momentum that she initiated. And I think Georgetown has a huge potential to be really quite a groundbreaking public school in terms of its outdoor ed program. Sorry, did you go?
I want to give Clara a little bit of time because we have a couple more questions.
Okay. So I think so in terms of helping the next principal coming in, I think I would really like to give them the green light to really build on our strengths in terms of outdoor ed and also school size, again, which Nina has done, but I think that can be enhanced. I also am going to throw it out there as a little teaser. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to entertaining the idea of a middle school extension of the school. So just going to put that out as a teaser. Thanks.
Clara, go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah, so the curriculum changes that I'm aware of, and now remember, my daughter's 4, she's in pre-K. My experience doesn't go much, before that. But I do know that the ELA programming was changed, and some new curriculum was adopted in that area. From what I see, I think there are still gaps and rooms for improvement there, especially in the reading instruction and phonics instruction for our youngest kids in the school. And with math, the math program is just outdated. There's, you can look up research on your own around everyday math, and we need to improve in that area. I think that one thing that's missing from my observations would be the transparency with the school board on what's being done in the schools. If I was on the school board, what I would like to see are programs being piloted, but also brought in front of the school board. I think it's important to have all stakeholders invested in the choices in curriculum. And then a fallback to the RTI, that response to intervention, we would want to watch really closely to see what kind of impact any kind of new curriculum has on the numbers. in our school and student improvement.
Okay, we have one last question that we can, I think, squeeze in, and I'm going to limit you folks to a couple minutes on answering this. So this again is for the school board folks. There has been a lot of concern nationwide about parental inclusion in public schools. Do you believe parents should have a quote driver's seat in children's education in public school? How do you think the school board may help foster that relationship between the school and parents? Clara, you're up first.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. My answer is absolutely. I wholehearedly believe that the parent comes first. They are the first line with a child and their education. I think that I'll go back to transparency, and what's being put in front of the school board. I think it's really difficult for a school board to help parents understand what's happening in the classrooms when the school board is not really seeing it for themselves. So that would be my first push. But being able to listen to parents and respond to them in a way that makes them feel valued, makes them feel that we're responsive to them, would be a goal of mine.
Thank you, Clara. Willa.
Thanks. I agree that as a parent, one certainly values being able to be aware of what's happening in the classroom. I see it as less of an oversight role and more as just a continuity of learning role of, I find, for instance, homework really is a way of communicating to the parent what's being learned and basically inviting them to be part of the learning process. I take a bit more of an issue with sort of parental control over the curriculum. I mean, it's not black and white, obviously. I think it has to be a conversation at all levels of government between the different stakeholders in terms of developing curriculum. But I do think that we need to trust our educators and our school systems more, and that parents often, I feel like, can really undermine the ability of educators to sort of mete out, that's a harsh word, but to sort of mete out good education. Because if they're really trying to please the parent, it's like there's too many people in that classroom. So I do think that we need rigorously trained and rigorously selected educators that we can trust to deliver the curriculum, and that we as parents are there to support them, not to sort of undermine them.
Oh, I think you're muted, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Clara. I think that Tyler and I feel that you have answered or been asked the questions, the general gist of the questions. There were several about diversity, inclusion, et cetera, and some that you would not as candidates have any control over. So, and there were no questions for you, Aria. We did not, shun you, but there were none for you. So at this point, I'm going to give each of you a couple of minutes, maximum of 2, to say your final statement to the voters. And I'm going to start. We have been hearing a lot from the people from the school board. So I'm going to start with Aria so that we are remembering that Aria is running for a 3-year term for the select board. Go ahead, Aria.
Okay, hi there. I'm going to try to do this without my dogs barking, but yes, I am running to continue my service to the town. It's, as you can tell by my enthusiasm, whether it's at Get to Know Your Neighbor, at Fall Frolic, or volunteering at the Websters, moving a bunch of sand. It's important to me to engage all of us at every level. And to ensure that we all feel included. Some folks have been here and their families have been here for 500 years. My son's Wabanaki, so his family's been in Maine for thousands of years. I've lived here about 20 years in Georgetown, and I'm so thrilled to be part of the community, and I'd love for you to support my continued service at this level as a select board member. thank you. I think that I would work well, and I have worked well with Jonathan and Bronwyn and Tyler and Alex. I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Alex, would you like to say a final statement to the voters regarding your running for one-year term for town clerk and tax collector, please?
Sure, yeah, I think I'll just take the time to let everyone know, the election will be on Tuesday, June 11th, from 8 to 8 in the gym. And also it's gonna be the town meeting June 15th in the gym. I'm not sure the time. I don't know if we set that, but that is also very important to attend because you are voting at town meeting. And we do have some budget and ordinance hearings coming up. That's also great to attend. I think something that we've heard a lot is people feel like they're not in the know of what's going on in town. And the information's out there. It's up to you to come to us and figure it out and attend those meetings and participate. You know, we can't do that for you. So just make sure that you come out and vote and participate in what's going on in town because it's all out there for everyone to join. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Clara, would you like to make this your statement? Because you were second last time.
Sure. I guess I would just wrap up with saying, you know, I'm happy to help. I'm here. I have more time. I love Georgetown. I think that no matter who you vote for, it sounds like both Willa and I are dedicated to what's best for kids. And I think that that's something that everybody agrees on. And we both love where we live. So, happy to answer questions if people want to reach out on their own. But yeah, go vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Clara. Willa?
Thanks. Yeah, I don't have too much extra to add, except to say that I'm, in terms of personal credentials, I feel like I'm a pretty good committee member. I work hard. I like the dirty work of digging into things and solving problems. And I'm a pretty flexible thinker. Sometimes I can come across as being having a strong stance on something, but fundamentally I'm good at.
And she was up in the suite.
Katie, could
Yeah.
you please mute? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I am bye to Katie. I'm a pretty flexible thinker and I'm really good at revising opinions on things, and I'm ready to do what I can to support our school, support our students at all levels, not just those at our school, and support our town. So, and I'm delighted that we have two people here who are both so eager to do that because it's an important job.
Thank you very much. Just as a quick reminder, the town ordinance hearing is in person and online. It's a hybrid meeting, and that's going to be on the 7th of May. So the 7th of May is the town ordinance hearing. And again, you can get the link by just contacting Tyler here at the office. And then there is another hybrid meeting on the school budget hearing, and that is on May 14th. And again, the hybrid, both in person and on Zoom. And finally, there's a town budget hearing meeting on the 15th of May, and that is also a hybrid meeting. All of the meetings are at 7 p.m. And they are all hybrid. Again, you can contact Tyler if you want to link to the Zoom, or you can come in person. And the key question you want to ask then is, well, where are these meetings going to be? And the answer is, we don't know exactly yet, because there may be a number of in-person people, but there will be something coming out on this so that you will know where to go. Okay, but please contact Tyler if you have questions. Those are all important. And tonight, we want to thank our candidates, Aria and Alex and Clara and Willa, all for being willing to run for offices in our town. This is, as I said to the candidates when we first got on, this is democracy at work. And we also thank you all. We had a high, I think, of 67 people, which is, I believe, a record, right, Mary? I don't.
So, yeah.
So wonderful to have all of you participating. And thank you so very, very much. So go Georgetown and don't forget to vote, okay? Voting is on
June 11th.
June 11th, and then we have our wonderful town meeting the next Saturday.
And
So
thank you, Nancy, for an awesome
Thank you,
job
Nancy.
moderating.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Okay.
Nancy.
thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
much. Go Georgetown.